Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be continuing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1. And we're going to do verses 22 to 39. So we're actually going to pass around the mics and take turns reading the verses. And then we will come back to verse 22 and do the report. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll start with text 22, and I'll begin, and then if you could have your mics ready, we'll go back and forth across the room. Text 22. The fortunate King Parikshit, inquiring further, said, "O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied, and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed." So does that feel relevant?
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the room that thinks, what dirty things? Okay. So text 23.
Shukdev Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and senses. With intelligence, apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called Virad Rupa.
So the pranayama is where they do the breathing, right? So sometimes alternate nostril, or like inhaling a certain number, exhaling. And so that's the practice to bring the mind under control.
This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of absolute truth, wherein the universal result of past, present, and future of material time is experienced.
The gigantic universal form of the personality of God within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by the sevenfold material elements, is the subject of the Bharat conception.
To realize that the study that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets.
The knees of the universal form are the planetary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atla planetary systems. The hips are Mahital, and outer space is the depression of his navel.
The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Maha planets. His mouth is the Jonas planets, and his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of heat who has 1,000 heads.
His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras. The material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire.
The sphere of outer space constitutes his eyepiece, and the eyeball is the sun as the power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palace is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue.
So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says he's the taste of water. And so here we have his palate is the director of the water, Varuna. That's the demigoddess there. And why? Because when we drink water, right, the palate's one of the first places that the water touches. This is that sensation of refreshment. Okay, text 31.
They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws of teeth are Yama, god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is a set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is a smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us.
So the smile of the Lord is often described throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam in various places where the Lord is smiling. And the purport Prabhupada here says, the Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. Usually when we're relaxed, feeling affectionate, our teeth show naturally, right? If someone's artificial, like smiling, they're kind of like straining, right? And usually their teeth don't show. Or like back in the day when they used to have the long, photographs used to take quite a while. So family portraits, everyone's just like stuck. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like in your grandma's attic. Yeah, the pictures there. So yeah, when you think about the Lord, he's so relaxed. He doesn't have any of the stressors that we have here, that we as little Kivas experience. So he's just affectionately smiling, very relaxed, his teeth show. Text 32.
It's the upper portion of his lips. Fingering the chin, religion is the breast of the Lord. And irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all of the beings in the material world, is restorative. And the Mitra, Brahmi, Aranas are his 2 testicles. The ocean is his base. And the hills and mountains are the steps of his bones.
So sometimes just commenting on the hankering in his chin. If you ever see a little toddler and they really want something, they're upset, they really want candy or something, their chin starts to quiver. They're about to cry. So the hankering in the chin. Text 33.
Okay. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the 3 modes of material nature.
O best among the Kuras, the clouds which carry water are the hairs of his head. The determinations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes.
So if you think about dress, coverings, right? We change those day and night, replacing our clothing. So the termination of days or nights on his dress. Text 35.
Of matter is the consciousness of the omnipresent word as asserted by the experts. The Vijay is his people. Of course, you can an elephant are the snails, and the wild animals and all quadrupeds are situated in the boat during the word.
Why is a bird? An indication of his masterful artistic sense. Mano, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charmas, and angels, all represent his musical rhythm, and the demonic soldier is a representation of his wonderful prowess.
So we have two more verses in. So when you think about National Geographic, for example, they have these beautiful videos and photos of birds. If you think about the birds that you see in pictures of, there's a variety of colors and so many different styles. So that's a very appropriate description, right? His artistic sense, you see it in that variety of birds.
The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipful demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord.
I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there's nothing more than this in the material world.
One should concentrate his mind upon his personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation.
Misled, right? One will be misled. So this is a very amazing verse, actually. The point that Krishna distributes himself in so many manifestations. And why is that? Why is that? Yeah, so reciprocate with everyone accordingly and to make himself available to as wide a variety among the jivas as there are, right? So there's so many types of living entities. And then if you think about the conditionings over the soul, so many varieties of conditioning. So Krishna makes himself available as an entry point for all of those situations. So we're going to 22. What I would like to do is actually read the Sanskrit together. So we read many verses, so let's do the Sanskrit together. Rajo Vacha Yata Sandharyate Brahman Maraya Prasamata Yadushiva Hare Rakshu Let's go to the translation and read it together. The fortunate king Parikshit inquired further said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to fly, and how the conception communicates so that everything is interpreted in mind. Purport, the dirty things in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. Any amens? Very relevant. Conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence. But on account of his gross ignorance, he is unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart, accumulated during the long prison in the material world, long prison life. He is actually meant to serve the will of the Supreme Lord, but on account of the dirty things in the heart, he likes to serve his concocted desires. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, create new problems and thus bind him to the cycle of repeated birth and death. These dirty things of fruit of work and empiric philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with his Virat Rupa, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord, which is what we just described. We just read through those verses. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic feature helps the conditional soul to associate with the Lord indirectly and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact. So we will go back to the verse, we'll pause there. Just for time, we're going to go on to the topic. So today's topic, so today's topic is how the Virat Rupa, this impersonal description of the Lord, purifies the mind from the dirty things. So you all seem to find it relatable that there's dirty things in the mind. So I would like to start with a little show and tell, little description, little physical depiction of what this looks like. So I brought here a light. It's very bright. So imagine this is the spirit souls, right? The light of us, our pure consciousness. Now, depending on the different layers of dirtiness, and that's determined by the modes we're in. So if we're in the mode of goodness, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a thinner layer, right? So we could have like this. Okay. So you can kind of see the light, but it's covered. And then as the layers get thicker, let's say mode of passion, right? Now, what happens when we have, we're just consumed in the mode of ignorance? Then it's completely blocked, right? So that no light goes through. So that's, I just want to give an actual imagery to think about. This is a hurricane of Florida. But yeah, just to have in our minds what it is, what that really means, a graphic analogy of that dirtiness of the covering the consciousness. When I was just recently in Vrindavan, Sachin Maharaj was giving a workshop on the holy name, and he had somebody hold up a mirror. He was giving class, and he had Ram Govinda actually was holding a mirror up, and he took a towel and was holding it in front. Did you see it live? Yeah. He was holding a towel over the mirror. So the same thing. That's the dirtiness that covers. So the audience saw the mirror, and all of a sudden it's blocked. So there's no longer the clear consciousness coming through. So by descriptions like this that we just read in the Bhagavatam, it allows for a gradual uncovering of those layers that we saw, right? Maybe they go from thicker to lighter, and then eventually completely washing away that dirtiness on the heart of the living entity who has been, why is the heart of the living entity dirty? What is that? What is that dirt?
Material contamination.
Yeah, so material contamination, how does that happen? How does the spirit soul who's beyond the material get covered by material contamination?
Separate desires.
Yeah, so independent, separate desires. Yeah.
Identifying ourselves with the body instead of when we really are.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. What's your name?
Sundarila.
Sundarila.
Yes. Contact with the material elements of of the senses.
Right, yeah, so, and it ties in with identifying with this body, right? So then I identify with the sense objects that my senses want to be pleased by. So then getting wrapped in that. Yes, Jonathan?
Yeah, I've just been even thinking about lately that we've been around for a long, long time and we experience a lot of different things. And, we carry that along with us. And it's not all, God conscious experiences.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. The word quagmire came to mind. I don't know if someone could pull up maybe just the definition of it, but I was thinking that too. We've been entrenched in this material conditioning for such a long period of time. So if you, does someone have it?
Yeah, we have to.
A soft, boggy area of land that gives way underfoot. So, or an awkward, complex, or hazardous situation, and that's the description. That's the word that I was thinking. So it's a quagmire. It's like you're trying to get out, but you keep sinking, right? If you've ever been in a marshy area, swampy area of Batesville, your foot falls in, you're like, and then by the time you get out, you're full of mud, right? Usually, or if you're visiting a farm, who here's ever visited a farm, helping maybe with cows or getting the barns out? There's a phrase, mucking out the barn. Mucking out the barn means to like really get in there and clean it out. So if we've been in this material, we've been involved with and identifying with this material nature for so many births. Just imagine like the stickiness that starts to happen, right? It's like even if we're cleaning out a barn, we come out full of dirt and mud. We got to go take a shower. So what to speak of on a subtle level, what's happening, distorting the consciousness. It's layer after layer after layer after layer. It's actually a blessing to not remember our past lives, because imagine if we remembered all of our past lives, we would have to remember all of the things that we were attached to, all the people that we wanted to be with or hold on to, or right, all of that stuff. That's all the conditionings that have formed us. But when we look in the mirror today, right, the body and the mind that we have, that's coming from the subtle bodies having held on to all those impressions and attachments, forming what we see now in the mirror. So, you ever feel proud when you're looking in the mirror? It's not the right emotion, right? It's kind of embarrassing. Somehow I wanted this experience. I created that with all my previous baggage. So we have this conditioning where we're all muddy, we're dirty, the consciousness is dirty. We want to be little mini gods. So what happens if I read a description like this as a starting point? Krishna's giving a stepping stone for the living entities. It's not as threatening as hearing about the personal feature of God. It's the segue in. It's a gentle landing point. Prabhupada describes it as impersonal. It's actually impersonal description of God. But a lot of people love nature. They love to think about the universe. They're less threatened by the impersonal. Why is it that they're less threatened by the impersonal? Yes.
My theory would be that in case of a personal relationship, you'll have to forget about your own desires, dedicate all your effort all the time to the person's desires.
Right. Yeah, that threatens our independent desire for enjoyment. And suddenly I have to. It's actually like that in relationships. So people often distance themselves from relationships when they want that freedom of not having to bother themselves with trying to care for others. Right? It's like a sort of a renunciation. Like I'm not going to get. But as soon as there's someone there, family member, a commitment that we make to somebody, then immediately I have to put myself to the side in order to make this work. I have to give of myself, and they have to give of themselves. So it's an ego booster. Ego reducer. Yeah. What else? Yes, Jonathan.
I was thinking maybe it's a little bit more safer to like wrap your head around, looking at like gazing at a star-filled sky or like an awe-inspiring sunset, and it's not something that's really gonna challenge you internally, but maybe just something that's more pleasing.
Yes, it's a good backdrop for our lives. We're not threatened by that. I haven't heard, and maybe, someone correct me if this is an internal experience for one of you, but I haven't come across anybody who said to me, I'm really jealous of that tree. Like, I'm really envious of that sunset. I really wish I could be that river. It's like envy doesn't really show up in that context, right? We don't usually, we don't find ourselves envious of nature. So therefore, it's a good starting point for the envious the materialist consciousness, right? Envy-filled jiva. It's like, okay, I can appreciate God from a distance so that there's not that jealousy that I want to be a mini God myself. And I can appreciate him without even realize that I'm appreciating him. And then gradually the development of the consciousness can happen.
For me, at the beginning, the reason why it was easier to kind of, worship, in a sense, the impersonal version of God is because at the time I didn't know, I thought that one is the right one, so I thought growing up, they say Jesus is the only way. So then, I thought that if I was to, look into, let's say, Krishna, or if I was to look into Buddha, then I would be maybe violating one of them. So it just made it easier at the time for me to just be like, God is everything. And so I feel like that's why it's a little bit easier to be approached to, is that then you don't feel like you're going against what your family believes and such.
That's a really good point, yes. I imagine many people who come from a specific religious background, particularly Christianity in this country, would relate to that, yes.
Maybe because they don't have to trust what someone else is saying. It's down to their own experience, safety.
Yes, so that's another thing. People are very skeptical in today's society. They don't trust easily, naturally. It makes sense because in Kali Yuga it is difficult to trust. But people want to be their own realized teacher. And the least threatening way to do that is to just go and observe and then learn from that. And so that's an easy way in. So what we're hearing here is that Krishna is providing an opportunity for Jivas 101, like those who are just clambering out of this quagmire, who want something higher. Here's this beautiful description in Srimad Bhagavatam that they can relate to or that they can find interesting. Maybe they just find it interesting. Maybe they think, wow, yeah, the birds have so much variety. They start to, perhaps, if they're listening sincerely, start to see, oh, could there be some connection between all these attributes and then a supreme person? Because these verses are describing such and such is this part of this body, this Lord's body, right? So it starts to make the mind curious. Some people are not curious. They might just kind of feel sleepy when they're hearing it. It might not register. But for those who are interested in intellect or thoughtful comparison, they might be curious about it. And in Kali Yuga, we don't necessarily use this, like we're not printing this in a pamphlet and giving it on campus, right? This section. And it's because in Kali Yuga, most people, this is going to go over their heads. This is not really common lingo even for the average college student. So it's there for people who may be needing that transition. And also, even if someone's just curious, or even if they've come and they're listening, let's say they come to a program at Christian House and they're curious, it may be over their head, yet something else is going on at the same time. So they've come somewhere, they've heard philosophy that some of you may relate to this. You heard philosophy or you read a book and it didn't really enter right away. However, something else captured the interest or captured the soul. The association perhaps, the kindness of a devotee who they ran into, the personal touch or the interest. Perhaps it was a sweet ball, something simple like that, or the music, or what other things captured you, by your interest.
Devotee effulgence.
Devotee effulgence, oh nice. There was a police officer who told Shyamala very early days that he pointed at problems and said, your teacher or that person's glowing. He's like, yeah, he's able to appreciate it. He was like shocked, like this. Yeah, sure enough. So yes, what else? Anything else that?
All gods with orange clothes. When I saw that, I was like,
The orange rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, yes. Prophet said that we should dress in such a way that it's like the Vaikuntha, ladies and gentlemen, radiate radiance. Jonathan, do you have something?
Yeah, I feel like stories are real mystical, and I always knew that, and I was real curious.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's different, depending on our psychophysical nature, there are different inroads, how we relate or what brings us to Krishna. For some, it's the effulgence, the food, the music. Others are more philosophically driven and really trying to understand, so they may really gravitate towards the literature and the classes. So there's no right way to enter Krishna, right? Krishna consciousness. So what we gain from this is that we understand Krishna's generosity of spirit here. He's laying out so many different ways in Srimad Bhagavatam for us to approach him. And similarly, we want to be like that too. We want to be like Krishna in that way, generous of spirit and fanning the spark of the living entities who come. So finding ways to help them relate. Prabhupada, I want to share this really beautiful quote from a lecture he gave at a university in Stockholm, Sweden. So you can imagine the audience must have been very young people, right? Maybe the college students of the time. So 1973. He's talking about the Lord's generosity, how generous it is that we can remember Krishna and perfect our existence in easy ways. Okay, so notice what he says here. He quotes from Bhagavad Gita. He says, Krishna says, Rasoham apsukham deya. Any liquid thing, the taste which attracts you, that is I. So remember, like the taste of water. So he's probably quoting now. Now here is an amazing statement. You may have heard this. Incredible, Prabhupada says. Even if you're a drunkard, you are fond of tasting wine, I should recommend, so Prabhupada saying, I should recommend that you simply think that this taste of wine is Krishna. That will make a yogi of you. Can you imagine the magnanimity of that statement? That will make you the greatest yogi if you simply think, I'm tasting wine. Oh, very nice taste. This is Krishna. Is there any loss if you think like that? This is Krishna consciousness. And then he goes on to number 2, analogy. Okay, so he did the wine. Now, the same Krishna says, I am the shining of the sun and the moon. Now, every day, in the morning, you see the sun shining. So as soon as you see the sun shining, if you think of Krishna, oh, the sun is shining is Krishna. You become a yogi. You become a yogi, said it twice. At night also, as soon as you see the moon shine, so immediately you think, this moon shining is Krishna. So you can become Krishna conscious in any circumstances. There's no limitation that you have to become Krishna conscious under this condition or that condition. And then third, you drink water so many times in a day. Just try to think that the taste of the water is Krishna. That is the beginning of your Krishna yoga system. Then if you chant Hare Krishna mantra, and he said, we can chant together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Then you'll become, and then he puts the word here, gradually. He does add a little adjective there, add gradually or modifier. The greatest yogi without becoming, you'll gradually become the greatest yogi without becoming a Vedantist, without becoming a religionist, or simply by this process you try to practice and your life will be perfect. So,
40 years, takes 40 years.
Prabhupada said that, right? He said, somebody asked him, how long does it take? He said, 40 years. to perfect your Krishna consciousness. So in this, I wanted to share that with you because we see Prabhupada's describing how accessible Krishna makes the entry points, how available he makes them. You just have to think about Krishna when you're going about your day-to-day life. So if we're perhaps appreciating a verse from this section today, we're going to nature, we're seeing the trees, what does it remind you of? Now that you've heard this. What aspect of Krishna's body?
Hair.
Hair, right? The trees are the hairs on the Lord's body. So that's another way to meditate on Krishna. So we're always looking, as devotees, we're always looking for reminders.
More than that, the tree is standing straight up, correct?
Static hairs, yeah. So we heard that a lot in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, right? The hair is standing on end in ecstasy. So yeah, the trees are Krishna's ecstatic. So we're always hunting for ways to remember Krishna. At least I know myself. It's a constant battle against the material nature that surrounds us, right? You have to stay very focused. Find ways to connect. Just like when you're in school and you're trying to remember something, like for a test, you come up with ways to help, right? Called mnemonic devices, or you come up with techniques. So if I have to remember the word, if I have to remember something about a certain place, like a country, and I'm being tested on it, if the name of the country reminds me of a certain drink that I had as a kid, right, then I use that to remember the name of the country, things like that. So that's a material example, but spiritually, on a spiritual level, we still use as many techniques as possible to help our consciousness stay in Krishna consciousness. The most direct way, of course, is the chanting of our names and doing that as much as possible. And then in addition to that, you can also read descriptions like this, or like Prabhupada's saying, every time you drink water, every time you take your water bottle, my water bottle, Krishna, and then you think, oh, Krishna gave me this, here's a taste of water, it's so refreshing, and then just feel that appreciation. Okay. Good answer. Yeah, and it completely transfers. Everyone takes your water. So we're appreciating Krishna through that that moment, which is so simple and so mundane, right? It's mundane to drink water. It's a basic human function. And yet, in that moment, even despite it being so mundane, it becomes transformed. That moment became transformed. Where suddenly I've remembered Krishna and my soul has awakened up from a stupor. Wow, suddenly my day's trajectory just changed. And then again, of course, material coverings. So then again, next time you drink water or next time we're speaking to someone, try to mention something that inspired you. Instead of just talking about the latest basketball game that you watched, right? It's like, try to do something that helps uplift. Or if you want to talk about basketball, find a way to connect basketball to Krishna. Right? There's no wrong way here. It's just continually trying to add Krishna. Add the one in front of all the zeros, Prabhupada. Say, add the one. We've done this here before. I did this exercise with the Krishna house where I gave random word names, like random objects, and then asked you how to connect to Krishna. So, you want to try it?
Yeah.
Okay. I did this one last night. I just want to try it again, see what comes up. Recycling bin. What comes up for you? And it can be either direct or indirect.
Samsara.
Samsara, okay.
Oh, well.
Anything about
recycle again, fire. Then we have to jump into the other fire to get out of this fire.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So it's a burning fire, but we're in the wrong one.
Yeah.
The other one's actually, the real fire is actually soothing and cooling to the heart. Even though it's called a fire of devotion, right? It's actually, yeah, it's a different experience. Yes, Jonathan.
One of my first services at Krishna House was to break down the boxes and put them in a recycle bin.
Yeah. So in that moment, you were doing service and you were probably chanting at times. And then also now you're reminiscing about a service in connection about it. So it's glorious throughout. Yeah. Probably a couple years ago. Yeah. What else? Okay, let's think of another word. Oh, you have another one?
It's very simple, but in California, at least, recycling bins are free.
Okay, yes, recycling bins in California are blue. So there we go. That's a very straightforward way to remember Krishna. Krishna's blue. You had another one?
Yeah, I think of the Sanskrit word mrityu, it means death, right? And then we chant Lord Krishna's prayer, mrityu mrityu namamiham. It's saying, please, save me from actual death in this world, which means to take me out of this material world. But there's also, well, this is kind of, but it's the Lord, it's transcendental. But the demons are represented by the Lord's anus, so like evacuating holes. So it's like, don't be that,
Yeah.
don't be trash in this world. Be a useful person, be a devotee.
Yeah, it's good. It's what not to be, right? So yeah, I love that. It's a different way to look at it philosophically. Yeah.
Okay, so when I say, Texas also has blue recycling bins, but when I see recycling bins, which, believe it or not, in some parts of the world, they don't have them. So places and areas, neighborhoods that they haven't, that's like, for me, it's like, oh, it's more the goodness, they're thinking about nature. So these are the good areas to preach, and to reach out to people.
Yeah, so you're seeing it as like a signpost, like go here, right? Come and share Krishna where the recycle bins are out. Yeah, because the people who are conscientious about recycling tend to be conscientious about life, and so they make a high caliber person. Let's do one more stop sign. What comes up for you? Michael, can you tell me?
The regulative principles.
Stop signs, yeah, of what not to do in our, yes, good one.
Well, they say life is a highway, so there are rules and regulations to keep you safely from A to B.
Right, yes. So rules of safety to keep you from A to B, that's a good point. Yeah, so sometimes we get annoyed. Have you ever been annoyed there's a stop sign, you're trying to get somewhere really fast? Oh, I have to slow my whole car down and stop. But so many times there are incidences where someone doesn't stop and an accident happens. So therefore it's necessary, even though it might be frustrating. In the long run, it's yes.
Stop sign is time to think.
Just, yeah.
When you're forced to stop, it's a good time to think.
Yes, good time to think and become deeper. What are times in life when we're forced to stop? When have you been forced to stop?
When you're injured.
When you're injured. What? What did you say?
When we're running too fast.
When you're running too fast. Yeah.
When we're tired.
When you're tired.
When you have to sleep.
When you have to sleep, yeah. Exhausted to the point of moving to the point of exhaustion.
When you die.
When you die, that's a big stop for this life, right? The ultimate, this life stops at death. So yeah, the ultimate stop sign. Actually, that's a good reason to practice during our lifetime, to stop and be reflective. So that at the moment of that time, when we're approaching the final stop of this life, it's not the final stop of our soul, but of this particular body, consciousness, mind, stopping. So then we'll have known how to slow down and be very internal. We'll have practiced that in our life, so that we're not running full steam to the end and we never develop our internal life. Okay? So as you can see, this is a very fun activity to do among devotees. And when I was a child, actually, we used to do this on car rides. My father is really good at finding ways to connect things to Krishna. It's just a favorite activity we would do. So we would do either this one of, you're driving by things. How does that remind you of Krishna? Or there's another game that you may have done. It's a guessing game. It's like some I think call it 20 questions. There's different names for it. But we used to do, think of something, a person or an object. So for example, you can do a personality. That's also fun. Or you can make it more difficult and think of an object connected to a pastime. So we used to do like the butter pot that Krishna broke when he was, right? You can get very detailed, and then everyone else is asking you questions. Is it this? Is it that? Is it taller than a tree? Is it different questions? Is it round? Is it, and so in that way, the mind gets the pleasure of having playful, right? It's the material mind is enjoying the playfulness of it, and the spirit soul is enjoying the memory of Krishna part of it. And so we can find ways to make Krishna consciousness fun, so the mind doesn't get rebellious, and then continually just remember him. And it's really fun activities to do with friends. So on car rides and things. And I'm sure you all have your own things that you've done on car rides that help you remember Krishna. So just to reiterate what we talked about today, we talked about how the Virat Rupa description is a stepping stone for the materialists to come to Krishna. It's a non-threatening way for them to relate. They can appreciate nature and things like that. Then it gradually purifies the mind. And I showed you that lamp, right? And you see how with the different coverings, it blocks the light. And then gradually these descriptions of Krishna help the mind, purify the mind. And we heard how Krishna is so generous that he gives it, and he makes it so available and easy for everyone. And Prabhupada was saying how even if you're drinking water every time, you just remember Krishna and you can become a yogi. He did add at the end, I just want to make sure that we caught that because there's two parts of it. Remember Krishna when you're drinking right, wine. Doesn't mean we stay at that level, doesn't mean we keep drinking wine. But he's making it available to everyone. And at the end, he says, also add the chanting of the holy names. So it's remembering Krishna when we see a stop sign or recycling bin, blue one, or whatever it is, and chanting the holy names, because the chanting of the holy names is going to purify the envy from the heart that keeps us from wanting to be in a personal relationship with a personal Lord. It's going to move that covering so that we can move beyond the Virat Rupa descriptions and actually want to know Krishna as a person. So I appreciate all of your participation. It's always very fun to hear your realizations. I don't know, maybe we can have time for one. Yes.
Everything, discussion, interaction. The envy being that kind of original good. And the section of our work, when we said today, we'll kind of go over people's heads.
Yeah.
And we hear not just so long ago, recently, even here in America, I heard from Lindy, because her grandmother, grandfather was a Native American. They had this idea of pantheism, or great spirit, and the river and the mountain. And it seems like that idea of pantheism or us being connected and part of nature kind of removes that separation. Separation being the cause of my envy of others. Because if I'm separated, now I have fuel, I have a reason to envy. But if I see myself connected with not just nature but others, so hence the whole chapter, first step in God realization. And I noticed also not just here in Native American, but culture, we can call it that way, but in many ways it is even more culture than present day. In other parts of the world also, all the native layers of their existence and history, like Slavic cultures, they also talk about great spirit and that connection and coexistence, dependence on nature, that we're forgotten in the modern day world because we don't depend on the rain and the sun, we just go to Publix, right? We don't have to depend anymore. So in a way, it's separation. It brings about more fuel to envy.
It deepens the illusion that we are actually the controller. If I just go into Publix to buy my groceries, Then it's all up to me to just get the groceries. There's such a disconnection from where it's coming from, the earth, the gratitude, really, right? It just leads to that. It fuels it, like you said, the envy. And I was just to add one thing to that, and then we'll end. So when you were saying those cultures that have the non-separation, they appreciate the mountains, the trees, the pantheism. The one advantage that those cultures had of the consciousness is appreciation capacity grew, appreciation and gratitude. So they're connected and they feel grateful for the life that they have and those animals, nature, all of that, and other people. Whereas in today's society, it can be so easy to self-isolate and just think, I'm separate from others, I'm different, I'm better than, or whatever, and to be fragmented in that way. So we can also grow our appreciation capacity when we're moving about life, even if we're running into someone with a gator shirt on, right? We can appreciate, here's a soul that is coming to get Krishna lunch and is potential for coming to a program, and I can make connection. Or for running into a tree, an oak tree here in Gainesville, we can feel appreciation for Krishna providing shelter, oxygen, and we can say Hare Krishna to the tree. You know, there's so many ways to develop that connection and that appreciation. That we are here in Krishna's world. It's a material world, yet Prabhupada said, by our consciousness shifting, it becomes non-different from the spiritual world. So if we see everything through the lens of Krishna, then it completely transforms our experience here in Gainesville. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Govinde, Namo Brahmanu Vaishnave, Swamaya Raja, Vishnu Jayate. First is about Mama Prasad, spiritual